Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Got the band back together in wonderful Indianapolis. Though it is raining at the moment, those photos were taken earlier in better times. As we look at Lucas Oil Stadium, we're on Radio Row at the Combine. Be here all week. I'm playing point guard. I'm the host now. I'm the captain. Screw you, Connor Rogers.
What was your comparison on the phone?
Well, Mike Conley was the comparison on the call. I think that might be a bit generous to me and not so generous to Mike Conley. I would compare it more to you get to be Carmelo Anthony this week.
Thank you.
And I'm Pablo Prigioni, setting you up,
my goodness,
which
what
is
a
a deep
callback.
cut for Knicks fans. But anyway, I'm Jay Croucher. He's Connor Rogers, Matthew Berry, Lawrence Jackson. We've kind of maneuvered the situation, Matthew, so if there are any photos taken, I'm not going to be able to cut you guys out.
No, it's smart. It's just very smart. Good job by the producers. So, we are from the NFL Combine, the now award-winning Fantasy Football Happy Hour. We're at the most recent Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association.
For that.
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. Appreciate that. The Fantasy Sports Gaming Association Awards recently, we were voted best video show by our colleagues and honestly our competitors.
Yes.
Did you give a speech?
What?
I saw the picture with you and Lawrence.
I wanted to give a speech. Lawrence beat me to the stage.
Of course. Lawrence is really good at that.
Lawrence always has a good first step.
Yes.
Everyone knows he's quick off the line.
Like just a quick burst. The speed ain't really there no more, but the initial burst is.
Yeah, you're quick off the line.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. They try to move you off I tried to move you off your route, but no, you got to the stage quickly. But anyway, we're thrilled about that, and don't you worry. We'll be talking about that award a lot more over the next year.
Yes.
That's what that's what I've learned is that, repeating jokes over and over gets you awards.
Yes.
It's not the last time you'll be hearing about our infamous award.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And it's more like the Oscars than the Golden Globes as well, because you can't buy these. You can't buy the FSGA like you can buy a Golden Globe.
Correct.
So
and the thing about it,
Best
it's
Picture.
a video award. So that means they like looking at you, Matthew.
Or they
Right.
tolerate it.
Yeah.
And very,
The-
I think they actually like looking at you three guys, and they tolerate me.
Good luck for the wardrobe department. Us winning that video.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Here you go.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
no.
Yeah, look at that.
Little some.
Oh, why don't you ever dress up for the show, Matthew?
I almost didn't
For the
recognize
actual
you.
show of which you're accepting an award for.
Yeah.
Very crisp. Lawrence always looks good.
Lawrence
But
always
this is above par for Matthew Berry.
Yeah.
Certainly.
yeah.
So it even fits, which is the great part.
Always want something that
Surprise
fit
in your
good.
voice.
Shout out NBC Wardrobe Department, but the tweet says it's for those listening on audio only. It's Lawrence and I accepting the award on behalf of the entire Fantasy Football Happy Hour crew.
Indeed. Okay, well, today, later in the show, we're going to take a look at Connor's big board. We'll look at our best bets for the Combine, but we are going to talk about all the buzz that has come from this very spot with a lot more news, I would say, than normal coming from the coaches. And so that's where we start off with the Rotoworld Player news, digging into the Combine buzz. And the first big piece of news is from Chiefs GM, Brett Veach, who said he's anticipating Travis Kelce will play in 2025, and we heard from Mr. Veach.
How we left at the end of the season is that he was fired up. He has one more year under contract, and still think he has that fire and desire to play. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no deadline. I think we left it as he'd be back, and we're excited to get him back and get him going.
At all surprised by this, Matthew? Kelce, at the end of the season, he didn't turn it on in the playoffs to the extent, certainly, that he did last year. And it felt like maybe the end was coming, but it seems like he's going to be back.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised as well because, to your point, averaged under 52 receiving yards a game. That was a career low. Only 3 receiving touchdowns this year. Also a career low, not counting his rookie year. Just honestly, didn't seem like Travis Kelce. Right. They completely disappeared in the playoffs and especially the Super Bowl as well. He's had an incredibly storied career, and it's also like he's got so much going on. He's got an insanely popular podcast. He's a well-known entrepreneur and investor. A lot of the companies that him and his brother have invested in are doing very, very well. He's got a very lucrative career as a spokesperson for a bunch of different brands. He's expressed interest in wanting to be a movie star, which you could see, good-looking, charming guy. It feels like you've won a bunch of Super Bowls, and you know what I mean? And do you want to, I think every player, especially every player at an elite level, has that moment where you're like, do I want to be Jordan on the Wizards? Right? Like Michael Jordan on the Wizards, he was still good, but he wasn't.
Yeah,
like
he was giving you 20.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. And so I am a bit surprised about this. But if they use him the right way, then I think he's obviously an asset to the Chiefs and to Mahomes. I don't know how much of a fantasy asset it is, because think
That's
about
the golden
I
question.
mean, right? You've got Xavier Worthy. He's emerged, and then you've got Rashee Rice coming back. We'll see what they do with Hopkins and Hollywood Brown and some of the veterans they have there as well. But just feels like there's even more mouths to feed on an offense that honestly didn't target Travis Kelce the way we've seen in the past.
Yep. What do you think, Lawrence? Low end tight end 1?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is he played that 84% snap rate. That's his highest since 2020. Now, this will be my question. If we could get these numbers again, 97 catches, over 800 yards, maybe 5 touchdowns, where would we draft him? Because those are premium tight end numbers. It would be interesting to see where he goes at that spot. But even Noah Gray is coming in, and he's making plays here and there too. So it'll just be interesting because, like you said, Matthew, they got a lot of mouths to feed. No longer are the days where we're taking him at the top of the second round of our fantasy draft.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, NFL-wise. He has nothing to prove for his career. Fantasy-wise, though, yeah, I think low-end tight end 1 is the right call there, Jay. I think he's somewhere in that 6 to 10 range, probably maybe you draft him as tight end 7. But, just real quickly, next year, who would you rather have, Travis Kelce or David Njoku?
Right. I think I'd rather take Njoku, depending on
we
who's
got a
under center
combo
for the
there.
Browns.
But right? I mean, that's the right, Travis Kelce or Jake Ferguson. It's a conversation.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm probably taking Kelce there, but
I am too.
it's a conversation, right? You're not taking him over McBride. You're not taking him over Laporta or Hawkinson or Brock Bowers, right? You're not taking. And
here's the kicker: there's 2 tight ends that are going to be taken in the top 20 of this draft, and Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
And we saw Brock Bowers, a little bit of an outlier to produce like that, but that'll add more guys into the mix that are number 1 tight ends in their offense.
Right. Travis Kelce or Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, I'd still go with Kelce.
But it's a conversation. It's not a, you're definitely taking, you know what I mean? Just because, again, we think Kincaid takes another step, maybe that he didn't. But, right, anyway, I just think he's probably tight end 7-ish.
Yep. That makes sense. Connor, Veach also said that Kansas City will look to get Hollywood Brown back. Do you think Hollywood Brown can still be a difference maker in the league?
I think so, but the question is how much in this offense where I think a lot of the things Hollywood could do, Xavier Worthy can do, and he's just younger and even faster. So you look at that and go, isn't this a team that maybe, and depending on Rashee Rice, his status coming back, you want a big outside wide receiver as well? I mean, you kind of want to have a different group of wide receivers. You don't want all the same guys. So he sounded confident that they really wanted him back, but I think there's a little bit more upside in other directions. Like if Devontae Adams became available, there's a couple good wide receivers in this draft they can look at. So I think it'll ultimately depend on the price there.
Yep.
And not only the price, but also get to your point about who's available, because the other thing is if there's a veteran out there, I could definitely see a veteran that has been on a tough team want to come there to play with Mahomes. I'll take the veterans minimum just to come play with Mahomes and chase the
Hopkins
title.
just did it.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right.
So
Keenan Allen will be out there.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen would be, imagine Keenan, that'd be fun. That'd
Very
be a
on
lot of fun.
brand with recent Chiefs acquisitions. Keenan Allen would fit.
Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett
who you're
unretires.
Yes,
Still
he's been trying to
eligible.
push into retirement
Yes,
for years now.
exactly. But I could see him unretiring to play with Patrick Mahomes.
Unbelievable. Well, someone who's not retiring is Matthew Stafford, though. He may be changing teams. The Athletic reporting that the Giants, they believe that acquiring Matthew Stafford this offseason is firmly on the table. And we heard from Giants GM Joe Shane on wanting a veteran quarterback.
Even if you get a young quarterback, you'd like to have a vet, in the room with them to show them the ropes and how to be a pro. So, we're looking at all different avenues. It's, hey, is this guy going to be really good for a young quarterback, or is this guy a starter? Or can we get a guy in the draft, or if we do, should we have a guy that's more of a guy that can develop and show a guy how to be a pro? So, we're going to look at, vets. We're going to look at the draft. We're going to look at trade candidates. We're going to look at under every rock to, find the best prospect for us going into the 25 season.
You know who's a veteran quarterback who's out there? Daniel Jones.
Yes, he is.
Bring him back.
Might want to give him a call.
Yeah. Thought a Joe Flacco joke was coming there, though. That'll have to wait for our next topic. Lawrence, to me, this seems like an unmitigated disaster. Like, why would the Giants want Matthew Stafford behind that offensive line in this phase of their building?
The way it sounded like Joe Shane sounded, they just like open everything. They just like, hey, we don't know what's going on. We'll take a rookie quarterback and put him behind a bridge quarterback that could help the rookie, or we'll take a veteran starter and get a rookie quarterback in the later rounds. I think their head is spinning right now when it comes to the quarterback position.
I'll tell you exactly why. And this is the problem with the NFL, right? And honestly, I put this on Giants leadership, which is the reason is that what the Giants should do is they should draft Cam Ward or Shadir Sanders, or try to develop a young quarterback, right? That's what they need to solve that problem. Especially because the team is still a little ways away. Even, listen, their defense is good. Like their defense is good. But the problem is that Shane and Daboll barely survived this year. Like they were on the precipice of getting fired, unfortunately. And so if you're those guys, they don't have time to wait. They can't take a project. They need to win this year, especially when you think about what the Commanders did last year, what the Eagles won the Super Bowl, the Commanders won the NFC Championship game, and you assume the Cowboys will be, better next year, right? And healthier. And so, if you're in that division, so they need to win now. Stafford gives them a chance to win now. At least that would be the thinking, right? Versus, a rookie quarterback that will have some bumps in the road. And so that's the problem, is that they're playing for their jobs this year. They basically a 1-year leash. And so I think it's a mistake. But I will say, I've talked to a source as well that said, there's definitely some smoke to that fire, in terms of not just Matthew Stafford, but also Cooper Kupp. That they could certainly see those two guys go into New York.
A package deal?
Yeah, in a package deal. Yeah.
Yep.
I asked around, sorry, Jay, I asked around some people about this yesterday that I know in the New York market, and the thought was, the Giants would love to do this if they can find a way to package this trade together. The biggest question they all had, or reservation, was they're not sure Matthew Stafford would love to do this. And at the end of the day, it's his call. We've kind of seen this playbook before, where maybe this is an ability for him to go out there, find out ultimately what he's worth, and if the Rams like the number, they just pay the guy anyway. So, because if you're Matthew Stafford, you're looking at that Giants situation and going, you brought up the offensive line, you look at where they've been in the standings and the roster, the work the roster needs, which brings up the Cooper Kupp element to it. Maybe you need to do that to sweeten it. That's not an enticing package when you're leaving Sean McVay and the Rams. So they're going to have to figure out all of that to convince Stafford, not just the Rams.
Let's say Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp go to the Giants. Where are the Giants going to finish in that division with a healthy Dallas coming back?
Fourth. They'll finish fourth in the division, unless Cooper Kupp can play right tackle.
Bingo. So it's like, if you're Matthew Stafford, you're seeing that.
In fairness, that team, Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp on that team, would be better than the team last year. I have a friend that bet them to win the NFC East at 85 to 1.
I'll do it again. I swear to God, I'll do it again. I'll do it again. It was very close. Never. It was never close, unfortunately.
I think they won.
They won a game. At some point, they won a game.
We were like, oh, man, they won. And then that was it.
I wish you had just burned money on set, because that would have been more visually appealing.
To be fair, they really should have beaten the Saints. So they should have finished 4-13 instead of 3-14. But alas.
That make it better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, all right, let's go to the Colts, Indianapolis' own, who apparently are going to have an open.
The only thing on Stafford, though, Stafford wants to get paid, and do the Rams want? I will tell you that I have heard this. One last thing on this. I've heard that there is at least one thought within the Rams organization. I'm not saying it's the prevailing one that'll win out. Is that hey, you know what? They've been piecing it together all along, right? They got rid of him. They kind of bought a championship, if you will, when they brought in Stafford. And they've yet to really, since McVay's been there, been like, all right, let's draft a rookie quarterback. Let's develop a team the right way, as opposed to just trying to kind of, Band-Aid and patch it every single year. And so is this the opportunity, while you still have trade value in Matthew Stafford, while there's still, potentially some value in Kupp, just sort of do a bit of a reset, right? Because you've got Nakua, you've got Kyron Williams, you've got, some young pieces on defense as well, right? Versus, do you have some young pieces to build around Do you try to,
People seem to forget that, like, the only team that gave the Eagles a game in the playoffs were the Rams. The Rams had like first down at the 20 and looked like they were going to beat the Eagles and then have a very good chance to get to the Super Bowl, maybe even win the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I'm not speaking to sources or anything, but I would just think logically the most likely thing is that he just gets paid and goes back to the Rams.
Me too.
Because that team is close enough.
But watch them get that 34th pick from the Giants and then sign Sam Darnold for half the price and just keep it rolling. It wouldn't shock me.
Indeed. Well, a team that's apparently potentially looking for another quarterback are the Colts, who Chris Ballard, GM, said that they will have an open competition between Anthony Richardson and a quarterback the team brings in this offseason, and we heard from Ballard on that competition.
It's got to be the right guy to create real competition, but we want to create real competition. I think it's good for the team. I think it's good for Anthony. I think as he continues to progress in his young career, us adding competition, I think will help up everybody's game. It'll be open. That's correct. And of course, it's got to be somebody that can really challenge from a production standpoint too.
Okay, Lawrence Jackson, you're the
you hear
preeminent.
that? That's Joe Flacco music. That's comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco music,
Flacco
Lawrence.
needs to retire.
I think we seen enough of Joe Flacco. This is all funny to me, right? You draft a guy, 20 years old, plays 13 college games. What you think's happening? He started 15 games in the league, and now he's out of open competition. Now, if you bring in a quarterback, it's either a guy who's gonna start over him or a guy who has no shot. Justin Fields, if he's on the Colts, who's starting? Justin Fields probably. Like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's going to start for the Colts. But what other veteran will it be like an actual competition?
Jameis? That's the one that comes to mind for me.
What's the
Right,
point?
I don't know.
But that's the bigger thing. You're right. Like they bring in Aaron Rodgers. Aaron's starting. Like whatever.
Aaron's not going nowhere to be a and then so you got that, right?
Right.
Let's say Anthony Richardson wins the starting position, right? But he's looking over his shoulder because it was a competition. So you never really kind of say like, hey, you're the guy. Mid-season last year, there were mock drafts having the Panthers taking a quarterback. We know that's not happening now because Bryce Young got his shot to play. So it's just a real, funny situation that I don't think it works to the benefit of Anthony Richardson, but he has to get better. He could have played and not had the situation like this. So now we're at this point where that's what it is.
Connor, how do you evaluate him as a prospect to, based on what you've seen so far through the 15 games? Like, are you like coming into the league? It felt like everyone had the same take. He's raw, but his physical skills pop off the screen. You're just like, if this guy can put it together, he's a video game. Like he's
Which
just
requires patience.
It requires patience, and so now that is that still the same assessment from? Do you think in your eyes, like there's still a there? He just needs seasoning, or is it like I don't know yet?
I thought when he came back from the benching, there were notable jumps in his game. I thought there were some dropped throws that you would roll on a highlight and be like, wow, this is progress. This is a touch throw. This is a deep throw. And developing a offense that uses his run game as a threat to open up things in the pass game. I think for this offense right now, they need a threat at tight end in the middle of the field because that's going to be a comfort blanket for him. I don't think the days have passed us by that Tyler Warren's going to necessarily be there at 14. Maybe it's Colston Loveland. Maybe they are there. Who knows? But they need a tight end that's a real threat for this offense. I would go further in on building it around him rather than doing – because, Lawrence, like this is the key point. What Fields makes sense, but what other quarterbacks are you going to sign that you're going to run the same exact offense that you do with Anthony Richardson? You're not doing that with the Jameis. You're not doing that, obviously, with Flacco of the past. I would want to build this thing a certain way that plays to his strengths as full as possible.
And we've seen it with guys like Jalen Hurts, who he had some struggles, but we knew he was young. He hadn't had a lot of reps. His first year fully starting, they go to the playoffs. I think the play.
Go watch film from Lamar Jackson's rookie year.
All of them got Lamar.
They wouldn't let him throw his rookie year.
And that wasn't even his offense. You look at guys like Lamar, Josh Allen, the last two MVPs, like they needed to just play. That's what their organizations let them do. That's what the Panthers let their guy do, and now they got him.
Here's the weird thing. If I had to place money on this, Jay, the starting quarterback on opening day for the Colts is Anthony Richardson.
Right. Yep.
But all that this has done is Now we're talking about it. Now everyone's going to be talking about it.
Right.
Now it's a story.
Yep.
Now
but
it's a story.
I
and
think,
I guess
I think they might want that, though.
No, I know. I think they do want that. I think they're like, we're going to motivate him. We're going to light a fire on him. And I'm just like you already benched him mid-season. He's already been struggling. Like, how much? Like, he's a pro quarterback. If he, he's either got the fire inside him to be like, I know I'm not good enough yet, and I need to do it, or he's not. Some BS about like, oh, we're going to bring in somebody, you might be losing your job again. Like, what do you?
Right.
And
let him play this year and then make a move.
One thing, too, that gets lost all the time, and it blows my mind, he had shoulder surgery during his rookie year.
Yep.
He didn't have an offseason to get better.
Yep.
As a young quarterback, you need the offseason to improve on things, not rehab. His offseason was rehabbing. There wasn't any time to get better. Now he has an offseason where he could actually improve and get better. Let's see what he looks like when he gets into training camp. So I kind of agree. I don't want to call it unnecessary, but it is. I'm curious now.
You got to give him a year.
It created a story out of nothing and didn't need to. Fantasy-wise, though, like, he's going to be a high upside QB too.
Yep.
Like, he's not somebody you're going to want to come into your league with as your only starting quarterback. But if you draft him outside, as your QB two, he's got the same massive potential we've seen.
Yep. Another team with quarterback uncertainty. The Steelers, perennially quarterback uncertainty seems. General Manager Omar Khan said he would like to re-sign one of Justin Fields or Russell Wilson this offseason. Connor, do you think either of these guys move the needle for the Steelers?
No, we saw it, right? If you've watched the movie before, I don't think the ending's changing next year, right? And I think, you look at Fields, there's more upside there. If I was going to bring one of the two back for them, it would definitely be Fields by far. With Russ, I think he's obviously on a downward trajectory, and maybe a fresh start elsewhere is kind of needed with him. But I don't know if Justin Fields is dying to go back and play Steelers football, the style they played with him. He can go somewhere else and maybe have a little bit more upside and grow as a thrower. And Matthew was kind of interesting at Radio Row when we had Jay Glazer on. We asked him specifically about these two. And, Jay was honest that things change all the time, but he didn't sound locked in that either of these guys will be back with the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
The sense that I've gotten around the league is that there may have been some friction between Russ and the coaching staff in Pittsburgh as well. And so Fields, again, to your point, does Fields want to really play Steeler football?
They didn't let him do a lot when he played.
No, they didn't. And also because this is a fairly weak quarterback class. Whoever drafts Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, those guys are starting, right? Day one. Yeah. But I don't think no one else.
No Jackson Dart, no Jalen Milroe. They got to sit.
They got to sit. So now you've got those two, and then you think about who's potentially out there. So we talked about maybe Sam Darnold's out there, maybe the two Steeler guys are out there. I'm blanking on Jameis, whatever.
It gets thin fast.
It gets
like the
thin.
fact Jameis was the
maybe
fourth.
Kirk Cousins gets released.
He has anything left in the tank.
Yeah, but so it's a very thin free agent market, and it's a thin draft class for quarterbacks. So if you're Russ or Justin Fields, you have to feel like there's probably better opportunities out there. You know what I mean? Now obviously the Steelers would be a starting job as well, but
right.
I don't know, just seems like more of the same.
Yep, agreed. Well, speaking of Kirk Cousins, Lawrence, Falcons general manager Terry Fontenot said the team would keep Kirk Cousins and his huge cap number as a backup to Michael Penix. Do you buy that?
Yeah, because what else are they going to do? They kind of made that bed. They about to lay in it with all that money that they gave to Kirk Cousins. And obviously, unless something could be worked out. Super Bowl week, I believe it was Kirk Cousins he's like, hey, I'm ready to go. I was hurt. My elbow was hurt. I'm back and ready to go. So he kind of alluded to his struggles due to the injury. But Michael Penix got in there and quickly showed in his limited time that he's the guy already. We didn't expect Michael Penix to be starting so soon, but now that he had some, a little bit success, he gelled with the offense quickly. They're it looks like the Falcons staff is kind of saying to him, your move now, Kurt. We'll keep you as the backup, even though you said, you're ready to go. Now what?
Yep.
And it depends on sort of, honestly, Kirk's attitude. Now, Kirk is, well known as a good guy, good locker room guy. We'll probably take this news and try to do what he can to help Penix prepare for the league. But, it's got to be kind of a
wants to play.
He wants to play. A year after, he was a hot free agent where, a team had to pay him $100 million guaranteed to get him to come there. Now they're like, oh, yeah, you're sitting behind this rookie.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, as much as I heard that relationship was really good last year,
Yeah.
even after obviously they had to sit Kirk down, but he's a guy that he'll want to play. I'm personally
Especially because,
not
by the
buying
way,
this.
he would be a better option for a number of teams in the NFL.
He knows that.
right?
I mean, he knows Kevin Stefanski would probably go there on a cheap deal,
Browns,
whatever it may be.
Like, I mean, if the Giants can't get something done with Stafford, but they do want a veteran, like Kirk Cousins in New York makes sense, right?
Absolutely
Honestly,
does.
Kirk Cousins to either New York team actually makes a little sense. You could see him as a stock. Like, I think what the Jets should do, I think the Jets should draft Jalen Milroe and then get, whether it's Tyrod Taylor or
I think they're going to go after Fields.
After Fields?
Yeah,
Great.
or at least have conversations.
Sure.
What about Kirk Cousins to the Jets, Connor?
I just don't know if he has anything left in the tank. And man, that's a tough bet to make for Aaron Glenn, who, if, at his podium yesterday, he's not looking at this as I'm here to rebuild. He's just not looking at it that way. He's like, I think this roster's good. He was ripping off players' names that are not even stars, and he's like, I want to win. And the league will know more physically about Cousins than we do. That's what we know. He can play, but does he have anything left in the tank physically? We don't know. Didn't look good last year.
I would be pretty surprised if he's the backup to Michael Penix. Like, when has a $100 million quarterback ever sat on the bench? Like, it just doesn't.
No, because
happen.
it also, by the way, you have to think about this not only from a player perspective, or like you have to think about like the team, and you have to think about like the atmosphere. And it's just like if you're Raheem Morris, do you want every press conference Penix throws 2 picks in a game? Yeah. What about Kirk? Are you thinking about going back to Kirk? Like, it opens up questions like every single day. Hey, go into the locker room. Hey, Bijan, do you think Kirk should be the quarterback? Now, like, it's an albatross hanging around the team where you don't want that.
He's used to that, though, because last year when Kirk Cousins was doing it, they would say, when are you going to put Penix in? When you go? So they so Jay, you were saying, are you saying it to the point where they'll move him?
I would think so. I think I'm not sure how viable a trade is going to be with that cap hit, but I don't know. I would imagine that a release at that
They'll have to eat a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? Or could they do a trade, but we'll eat most of it or something
That's
like
what it'll
that?
come down to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins for Deshaun Watson. Who says no?
America says no to that one.
I'm saying no right now.
Yeah. We all don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Yep, indeed.
But anyway, there's a lot of openings, and not a lot of quarterback talent to go around, which is why I do think it would be weird if Kirk Cousins has anything left physically. It'd be weird that he would not have a starting job.
Yep. Okay. On a brighter note, my new favorite character in the NFL, Jags head coach Liam Coen, was talked about Brian Thomas and how the pass game will run through him, and we heard from Coen.
He's so dynamic, being able to move him around, where you saw him at LSU maybe not do some of those things, right? Where he was mostly outside, running more linear routes, vertical post, some overs, and then the stop. So the ability for him to snap down, get in the slot, be able to run some of the choice routes, looky routes, and then, oh, by the way, you can throw him a screen and he can go do something with it. Our pass game will run through him, and super excited to get to work with him.
Duval. It's always weird when he doesn't say it. I don't like it.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Taking him in the first round. Screens, that's 1 point right there in fantasy.
Right.
That's a PPR point.
Lawrence did that math in his head.
That was nice.
And it took a great effort to do so.
It
took great effort to do so. That's one whole PPR point.
I think he's got to be a top 10 wide receiver icon.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, alpha wide receiver in an offense that, in theory, should be able to get him the football. Great play caller. I mean, we can make all the jokes we want about Liam Coen. He's a marvelous offensive mind. So, and the talent is insane. I mean, it's underrated. It's amazing he lasted as long as he did in last year's draft.
Final 6 games of last year, he was the second best wide receiver in fantasy football. And the fact that they're going to expand his route tree. It's not just going to be go routes, which, by the way, worked all the time last year. You know, but there's clearly a connection between him and Trevor Lawrence.
And Mac Jones.
Yeah. And Mac Jones. I mean, he's sort of quarterback proof. BTJ is, and so. You will win a trivia bet. Like, he finished third in the NFL in receiving yards. Like, I don't think people realize that. Like,
he also got screwed, but repeatedly by missed throws, by Jalen Ramsey mugging him in the end zone. He got screwed. He should have had more yards. He's going to be an absolute monster.
What do you think his odds will be for Offensive Player of the Year?
I imagine that he would open in the 40 to 1, 50 to 1 type of range. Yep.
I would play that too, like, a little bit.
I think based on just what Liam Coen said, that 87 receptions, that jumps up to 107, just based on the fact that they'll move him around the offense like a Amon-Ra St. Brown, except more explosive, a true outside guy just moving him around.
Yeah.
I think you see more receptions out of him.
It's hard for me to get him into the first round, but I think he's a second rounder in fantasy drafts.
Right
and
there
overall
at the top
fantasy
of the
drafts.
second.
I think he's in the 10 to 15 range overall. Would be
Connor, how would you draft Neighbors, MHJ, and BTJ now that we have a year of data?
I would take Neighbors, BTJ, and then Marv.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
crazy that we don't even
Wow.
we didn't have a Dunze.
What
in
about
that
what
combo.
about McConculus?
McConculus?
What about my boy McConculus?
The question is,
Be
would
your
you
boy.
would you take McConkey
He
over
plays for the
Roma Dunze?
Chargers.
And I think you would.
Probably. Yeah, it's kind of
Right?
crazy.
It is kind of crazy how
Kinda
quickly
crazy.
things change.
Yeah,
I think the Neighbors BTJ debate will be one of the best ones this summer. And we don't know who the Giants quarterback is, so how do
That's
you?
right.
But
Because it don't matter.
it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I mean, he caught passes from.
That's the good
Tommy
thing about
DeVito.
it.
DeVito.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
Daniel Jones and whoever.
It can't get nothing but better from elite neighbors,
Right.
so we good on that front.
Okay, Jags GM James Gladstone also spoke about Brenton Strange, said really excited about his ascension in year 2, and I think he'll have a part in the offense moving forward in a way we haven't seen yet. Matthew, do you think there is upside in this offense for Brenton Strange to carve out a starting tight end role in fantasy?
For sure. When Evan Ingram was out last year, Strange was kind of a thing. We talked about him a decent amount on Happy Hour as a waiver wire pickup. 4 career games with 5 or more targets. He averaged 12 fantasy points per game here. The path for Strange to get fantasy relevancy, though, is that Evan Ingram's no longer on the team. There's an opportunity. I think because of how they're maneuvering their roster and wanting to start over under Coen, my expectation is that both Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram will be released or potentially traded, but both guys I think will be out there, and so I think you'll see Brian Thomas and Brenton Strange as kind of the leaders of this Jaguars passing attack. I don't know what they're going to do with Ridley as well. So yeah, is Brenton Strange awesome? No, but is he going to be like tight end 13?
Streamable?
Yeah, I think he's a streamable tight end is what I would say. My off the top of my head ranks would be somewhere in that, again, kind of 10 to 15 range, probably like tight end 13, 14, I could see something like that.
Okay. Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon said the 7 most dreaded words in fantasy on Trey Benson. I believe we have 2 starting backs, and we heard from Gannon on expectations for Trey Benson next season.
Coach, what are your expectations for Trey Benson this year in terms of his role?
Light it up. We have, I really see us, if he takes a necessary jump from year 1 to year 2, I think we got 2 starting backs. That's how I kind of view those guys. And you see certain teams out there that have 2 1s, I would say. I think we should have 2 1s next year.
Yeah. By the way, that was me asking the question.
I was going to say, I think I recall that handsome voice.
Yeah, Johnny journalist over here. Look at me.
Unbelievable. Look at
You
the
with the
scrum.
common people.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's very rare.
Outrageous.
We have photo proof
As
of this.
as they say, out here grinding.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Unbelievable.
don't even know if I believe it.
It was, and I also, by the way, I also asked him about Kyler Murray's rushing, the lack of rushing, and he dodged that question. It was a big word salad that made no sense. We're happy he has the ability to be a dual threat quarterback. Didn't address why they didn't use him or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, but as it relates to Benson and Connor, we saw Connor starting to get older, and I'll have James Conner ranked higher than Trey Benson, but certainly the workload that we've seen Connor get in previous years feels like from that comment, it's not going to happen. Feels like it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation.
I mean, you take
Connor.
Benson in the second round for
Right.
a reason, right? And when there was moments last year when he got the ball, he looked like a difference maker. It's just they never felt like he was ready to take over the reins or even split it, Lawrence. But I think the talent Benson has, the contact balance, the ability to get downhill. I know he's somebody, when I had him here at the Combine last year, he talked about how much he wanted to continue to work on pass pro specifically. Probably just needed a year of seasoning. I think this will start to kind of tilt towards at least maybe a 60-40 with Benson involved.
Yeah, definitely. He's a bigger running back.
Yes.
Definitely a guy who could take it to the house. Ran a 4.39 at this combine. last year, so we know he could do that. I think it was a combo of him just like not being all the way ready.
Yep.
Then they're like, oh damn, James Conner, he still could be good.
Right.
You know, over 1,500 scrimmage yards says that. But like you said, I don't think James Conner completely goes away. He's too good for that at this point. But it could get to a point where it could be like one of those annoying backfields for fantasy. Like, who do you start this week? Kind of like Bucky Irvin, Rashad White, the first half of last season.
Yep.
That's a good call. I do wonder if James Conner ultimately is going to be a value in fantasy drafts.
I think
he's always,
he
always
will.
underrated.
Yes.
And this news and the Trey Benson drumbeat will increase as we get into August. And people are like, James Conner, I'm done. He's old. He's going to be in a committee. And then we're going to look up, and he's going to have 10 touchdowns.
Yep.
And another 1,500 scrimmage yards.
Yeah, and he catches the ball.
Right.
Okay. The Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir agreed to terms on a 4-year contract extension worth up to $60.2 million, including $32 million guaranteed at signing. Connor, I think Shakir is, speaking of underrated players, he's just perennially underrated, and we kind of forget that he is, I think, pretty clearly the wide receiver one for Josh Allen.
100 targets in a Josh Allen-led offense. Sign me up for the following year of this, in a year where they bring in Amari Cooper for a third-round pick, and it didn't matter. That's what jumped out to me, Matthew, is that Amari Cooper gets there. They drafted Keon Coleman. They brought in a lot of – Dalton Kincaid was supposed to have a massive jump. And Khalil Shakir not only held his own, but established himself as the guy above all those other names.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, and he was a favorite target for all the guys. You mentioned Cooper and Keon Coleman and Mac Hollins. What I mean? But there were all these perimeter guys.
He's a free agent.
Yeah, but there were all these perimeter guys, and Shakir was the guy that Josh Allen every single week. That was the one guy in that Bills offense that you could count on to get a decent amount of looks, and so. Again, more of a wide receiver 3 in PPR, probably a better player for the Bills than he is a fantasy asset.
Right.
But it's nice to see he had a breakout year, and it's nice to see the Bills reward him. And it's just another weapon for Josh Allen, who is still my number 1 quarterback in fantasy.
Yeah, I think even if you were to get a better version of like an outside receiver for the Bills, I think Khalil Shakir still he'll have his same value, whatever that may be in fantasy, because that's simply the guy that Josh Allen looks for when he's in trouble. He knows Khalil Shakir can take the ball at short distance and make a big play out of that.
Yep. Last news item for us. Browns GM Andrew Berry said he expects Nick Chubb to hit the market. Matthew, you'd be a poor man betting against Nick Chubb to overcome the odds over the journey, but he did look, and it's hard to know because he's coming off such a traumatic injury behind a tough offensive line, but he clearly didn't look like himself when he came back.
He didn't. He turned 29 last December as well. He's had injuries as well. Never had a game with over 60 rushing yards last year. You expect him to be better, another year removed from the injury as well. But he's probably going to have to sign. Connor, you have a better sense of this than I do. But my guess is he'll sign a 1-year prove-it deal.
Look at Aaron Jones last year. It was 1 year, $7 million. I don't even know if Chubb gets that.
Yeah, exactly. I could see like 1 year, 1 year, 4.5,
incentives.
1 year, 5, with a bunch of incentives as well. And so, I think he'll be a flyer. He'll be in some sort of committee.
The Cowboys' number 2 running back.
I was going to say, let's get him to Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very on brand.
He get to Dallas with the same running back room, and he's like healthy.
Rico Dowdle's a free agent.
Yep.
I mean,
So
you might be on to something.
The fantasy angle of this to me is I'm watching that Browns first pick in the second, that 33rd overall pick, and what running back are they going to be looking at, and how relevant that guy will be in fantasy. If it's Omarion Hampton, forget it.
Instant relevancy right there.
Massive.
You go back to Nick Chubb, who was a second-round pick for them. He be instant impact. You go back even further to Trent Richardson.
Right.
Like, that was his best year as a rookie for the Browns. So, that is a good call, Connor. Whoever they take right there, running back, it's up for them.
Especially because it is an insanely deep running back class for those that haven't gotten into it.
It's
We're
loaded.
going to get into that in a little bit here, Connor, with you and your big board. But, yes, it's an insanely loaded running back class. So, if you're the Browns, wait on running back, and you could get someone. They probably can get someone in the 3rd as well. But I'm with you. Whoever the Browns draft is going to be immediately fantasy viable.
Yep, and we'll talk about some of those candidates in the draft after the break. We will hit Connor's big board, talk about Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, Ashton Jeanty, and many more players who may be changing the destinies of teams in the draft. Okay, we are back at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Connor Rogers is running around like a madman. This really is your week, Connor. This is like Dame Lillard three-point contest, Mac McClung dunk contest. This is your time.
That's an
to
apt
shine.
one.
And here is your big board. As we take a look at 1 through 10, no surprise, Travis Hunter, generational prospect number 1. Abdul Carter, getting a lot of buzz to go first overall, is second. But the guy I want to start with, Connor, naturally Ashton Jeanty, and I guess.
And to be clear, these are your rankings of talent. This is not a mock draft. This is not
just
how
talent.
This is just.
Yep. These are the best players in the draft.
Pure talent. And
that's why Ashton Jeanty's a 3.
Speaking of that talent, exactly where does Jeanty stack up to like Saquon, Bijan, Adrian Peterson, these generational prospects?
Right. Yeah. Who forget Brian Robinson? It's funny to ask that, Jay, because one, he's really just as good as those guys on a talent perspective, but he's so different. Right, he's not as explosive as AP was coming out, or he didn't have the outside breakaway speed that Barkley had that was rare air. But what Jeanty has, better than any of those guys, is he has the best balance I've ever seen at the position for a college player. Obviously, things get a little different at the NFL level, but you watch 300-plus pound defensive tackles at Oregon bounce off of this guy. And Lawrence and I sat down with him at Super Bowl, and we asked him, and this is somebody he's just been lifting weights his entire life. He knew that his body's strength would be so important to him, and he's a gifted runner in terms of vision and feel. I think he doesn't get enough credit for that. He's somebody that understands how to kind of be patient, pick the hole, explode through it, run through arm tackles. He's a good pass protector. Like, there's really not much this guy can't do, and I think if he ran here, and he's not going to, maybe he'll run at the pro day, I think he would have ran a lot better than people expected. They looked at him as a 4-5 guy. He's probably more of a 4-4 guy.
Yeah, the best thing about him, too, Connor, is people questioned that speed coming into the season, but during the season, you saw that no one was catching him from behind. He would outrun some angles, and he had enough speed to get there. And he told us he could probably run a 4.4, maybe a 4.3, so I definitely think that 4.4 range is it for him.
Is there a single cleanest comp to Jeanty? Who does he remind you most of?
I haven't landed there yet with him. I have one for when we talk about Omarion Hampton in this running back class, because once again, it's just so unique a guy that size with that pound-for-pound strength. It just doesn't exist very often. I'll land on one after the testing and you get real measurements, not school-listed measurements. But Jeanty, to me, he becomes the identity of your offense, Matthew, the day he steps in the building.
And he's going to be a first-round pick. I think he's going to be a top 12 fantasy pick and top 12 NFL draft pick. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to, because whoever invests that kind of draft capital in him, it's Bijan Robinson. It's somebody that's going to get just a massive
without Arthur Smith ruining
it. Exactly. But you just think about Ezekiel Elliott, his rookie year. You think about Saquon, his rookie year. Like, if you spend that kind of draft capital on a rookie running back, he's getting the rock a lot.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. Where does Tyler Warren stack up on the, again, generational kind of list of tight end? Like, how does he compare to Brock Bowers?
Well, that's the problem. He comes the year after Brock Bowers, and I don't know if I'll ever have a tight end better than Brock Bowers, especially translating to fantasy. Sure. He was just as gifted as a pass-catching tight end as you get. That's why I compared him to George Kittle that year. But Warren's still really good. It's not very common you get a player in one college season that catches touchdowns, runs for multiple touchdowns, and then throws a touchdown. High school quarterback. This is somebody that's 260-plus pounds. What matters with Warren in fantasy is he will never come off the field because he's such a good inline blocking threat. That allows offenses to play multiple. He's a big-bodied red zone threat, and he had the receiving production to match. So Warren, for me, is somebody that he'll be a top 5 tight end in fantasy, maybe not next year, but in the near future because he's going to play so much.
Interesting thing, too, about him, Connor, you mentioned the rushing. There's a lot of talk going on right now about the tush push, right? We see how the Ravens use it, right? They put Mark Andrews in there, and they push him forward. That could be Tyler Warren, and if you could get 4 or 5 touchdowns on a season, that will boost his fantasy value tremendously.
It's a great call, Lawrence. I think he's built for it. He played Wildcat quarterback for Penn State.
Yeah.
He could be a tush push absolute machine in fantasy.
The only challenge with Warren is that, like, it didn't affect George Kittle this year, but traditionally, like, Kittle has not been as great a fantasy asset as perhaps he could be because he's blocking, because they're using him to block so much that he's not running routes on every play. Not even every drop back. So, unfortunately, sometimes being a good blocker, it gets you on the field, but doesn't doesn't always come together. That was the problem with Njoku early in his career too. Njoku's a great blocker.
Yeah,
great blocker.
It happens to Goddard sometimes.
Yeah,
Goddard could have more receiving production, but he's a good blocker.
I wonder with what's happened to Cooper Kupp's body, whether teams kind of deprioritize like players of that skill level who can block at that capacity. Cooper Kupp was like the best blocking tight end in the wide receiver in the league for a time, and
they do it at Puka now though.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah,
that's the problem.
That's the issue. Okay, Tetairoa McMillan is number 10 on your board, Connor. Lawrence, what do you think that the upside is for Tet in year one?
I think it's great. He's a receiver that could do anything at that size. He moves like a guy who's smaller than what he actually is, 6'4", going about 210. We'll see what he officially measures here at the Combine. But when we talked to him, Connor, during Super Bowl week, I asked him what a successful season would look like for him, and he said just getting out of it healthy. I just want to play football. And that showed me he care about the game. Asked him about his matchup with Travis Hunter. He respects his game. He said that's the biggest face in football right now. And so he respects his opponents, but he can also go out there and compete with them. Because he had the upper hand against Travis Hunter the 2023 season, and not a lot of receivers could do that. A lot of people compare him to Drake London. I would say he's a bit more explosive, although he's not a 4.3 guy, but enough speed to get you what you need.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton, for me, is the one I really like. And I know Sutton's been hurt, but he felt like he really bounced back this year with Bo Nix under center. I just think that kind of size and red zone ability, and Lawrence, he brought up, he's like, people thought I couldn't run after the catch, and I showed them right away that I can make plays.
First game of the year.
First game of the year, I'm going to show them I'm going to make plays after the catch. Matthew, landing spot will be so key for McMillan, though. You want a place where the targets are just on a platter.
Yeah, and by the way, that they take advantage of his skill set as well, and that there's a good quarterback and a good play caller in place. But I think what we it's super weird because I can talk out of both sides of my mouth, right? There's the Brock Bowers argument. Talent is talent. It doesn't matter. There's some Malik Neighbors. Didn't matter. That was the anti-Malik Neighbors argument was well, he's not going to have a quarterback. And he dropped too far in drafts, and, he was on the love list. On the other hand, the same argument was made for Rome Odunze, and
he had to wait.
He had to wait. He didn't do anything as well. So landing spot's going to be, as with any wide receiver, landing spot is so important. When we were talking a year ago, we were talking about Odunze and Harrison. Maybe a little McConkey, but, we certainly weren't talking about Brian Thomas Jr. a year ago.
No.
Indeed. Okay, let's look at 11 through 20, starting off with Walter Nolan, defensive lineman out of Ole Miss, but let's kick it to Omarion Hampton, North Carolina running back. You said you had a comp for him, Connor?
At least moments where I see the best version of David Johnson.
Okay.
I mean, you're just that big and that fast is not supposed to happen at this position. This guy was, like people say about you, Matthew, carved out of stone.
Yeah.
I mean, a funny story about Hampton is when he was in high school, I think they actually had to stop loading up weights on the bar because the bar started to bend at his high school weight room. He's different. He's built different. He can catch the ball. He's so physical in everything he does. Pass pro, downhill running. Their offensive line stunk this year. So ignore that he averaged under 5 yards a carry. He's going to be a star.
A lot of people, unknown fact, his full name is Omarion Matthew Hampton.
Yes.
My full name, Matthew Omarion Barry. So
funny how things line up in the world.
See, now the Wikipedia people going to change it again.
There you go. There you go. Connor, I'm just curious because I've had some people say Hampton's clearly the number 2 back in this class, but I've also had a few other people say they love Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
How do you view these two guys? Just because those are going to be, everyone has Jeanty 1.
Yep.
But,
that's the easy one.
Yeah.
That's your bingo free
right,
space.
Exactly.
Here's the thing with Travion. He's the most explosive big play threat guy. I don't know, and Ohio State kind of showed how they felt about this, if he'll ever be a 20-touch guy. He got hurt. He had a foot injury very early in his college career. He wasn't the same guy as sophomore year after a great freshman year, and they were very careful with him the final 2 years, where it was more 10 to 12 touches a game, Lawrence, and boy, did he make the most of them. But Omarion Hampton, 227 pounds of pure muscle, This dude's getting 25 touches the day he steps on the field.
Yeah, Omarion had been too. You said it. You talked about his size. He could get skinny in that hole. And while he doesn't have the crazy breakaway speed, you get to the fourth quarter when you don't wore down the defense, he'll take it 40 yards.
Yeah. So this is a guy who's, again, to your point, if he goes to Cleveland or if he goes somewhere,
Big-time fantasy player.
Yep.
Big-time fantasy player.
Two names to quickly hit before we go to break. Emeka Egbuka, Colts, and Loveland. What do you think of their scope to produce in year one?
Egbuka is somebody I really like for Washington. I think he's the best blocking wide receiver in the draft. He finds the soft space in the zone. Another Ohio State wide receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin. He's so smart in everything he does. He's an underrated athlete. He just understands how to attack space and tempo. Colson Loveland, to your point, Matthew, about sometimes when guys are so good at blocking at tight end, it hurts their production. Loveland is more in the mold of he'll be used like Dalton Kincaid. He might have the best hands in the draft. He's so good when the play breaks down. And there's a lot of buzz for Loveland around here being a top 15 pick.
Wow. Okay.
Top 15.
Okay. Unbelievable. All right. We're going to hit our last break. When we come back, our favorite combine props after the break.
Yeah.
DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 sportsbook for live betting, and new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Just download the app and use the promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown is yours.
It's yours.
Oh my God, it's yours.
Yeah. Oh God. Last call. Top combine props. It's unbelievable that we can bet on this. God bless America. God bless DraftKings. Lawrence, what is your favorite combine prop?
Yeah, I'm going to go with fastest 40-yard dash, slower than 4.255. I'm going to go with a UGA wide receiver, Arian Smith, running a 4.28, and then the Texas wide receiver, Isaiah Bonner, go 4.29. That is extremely fast already, so I'm going to say slower than 4.25, though.
Okay, my bet, not combine related, taking the Chargers to win the Super Bowl. That's right.
Oh.
Calling my shot. Plus 2,800. I think the Chiefs are sliding a little bit. They've got concerns at offensive line. The Chargers, this was supposed to be the rebuilding year for the Chargers. And they were a favorite in a playoff game, which admittedly didn't go so well. But they can get, I think, up to $80 million in functional cap space if they make some moves at around Justin Herbert. They'll make smart decisions in the draft because they're a smart organization now. And I think they can go all the way, Matthew.
Connor had to go interview a prospect. He's interviewing prospects all week long, so you can check all those out at the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. But just before he left, he told me his favorite bet is Commanders to win the Super Bowl. It's so going right against yours there as well. It's super weird. But Connor told me, yes, he absolutely loves Commanders to win the Super Bowl. My bet, I'm going to take the guy we talked about earlier in the show, Brian Thomas Jr. at 35-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. Just think his skill set and the fact that the Jaguars aren't going to be good. I think he's going to get a massive amount of volume. So yeah, give me BTJ at 35-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. We are back tomorrow. More combine rumors, more interviews with prospects, more big board. For Lawrence, Jay, and Connor, I'm Matthew Berry. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.